Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer.
See, I still answer those.
You do. It's a little slow, but. Hi, Lisa.
Should make sure the camera's on.
You guys miss me? She missed me.
Of course.
That did not seem sincere. That did not seem sincere whatsoever.
Delayed. We were delayed.
We have Councilman Peters on, well, no, she needs to speak, right?
Gotta love that.
That's what I thought.
Life's interesting. Never know. I know.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if I ever totally got out of this, so, yeah, you're right. The property tax plus appropriations always meets. We have a little break now until.
Glenn, he's yelling at you.
What?
Would you do us the honor of?
Why did I know that was coming?
It might be because I didn't think about it until just right now.
I'll do it.
Thank you so much.
Are we ready to roll?
Yes.
Call to order for a Watertown City Council meeting for October 27th of 2025. Please rise while State Senator Glenn Vilhauer leads us in prayer.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather today with grateful hearts. We are so blessed with everything that you have given us. We look around this wonderful world and this community, and the people in this room that are dedicated to service. We, again, have so much to be thankful for. We don't always do the things we should, and you know that, but we are trying. And now we ask that you give wisdom to the people in this room to make decisions that are pleasing to you. In your Son's heavenly name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Hoyer,
Here.
Pauline,
Here.
Mormon,
Here.
Jurens,
Here.
Peters, absent, Shuddy,
Here.
Allen, absent. Thank you.
Quorum is established. Councilman Peters is otherwise engaged, but will join us online as soon as he can, and I think the same for Councilman Allen. But I think he should be joining us in person. But we're not going to wait necessarily for that. I will ask if anyone on council has a conflict of interest of anything on today's agenda. Councilman Hoyer?
Just as a friendly reminder, I'll be abstaining from, there it is, the 9 alpha.
All right, thank you very much. Any other conflict of interest? All right, hearing none. I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda, but with one slight change. We are going to be taking 9A, then 10A, then 8A in that order. Can I get a motion to do the agenda in that order? Made by Councilman Hoyer, seconded by Councilman Mormon. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to open forum. If there is anyone who would like to address the council on something that is not on today's agenda, now is your time to do so. I'll close the open forum and move on to the agenda. Item 9A is a second reading of an ordinance revising Chapter 2.02 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown regarding the on-sale licenses for full-service restaurants. We'll go to our city manager, Alan Stager, for more information.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of an amended ordinance to make changes to Chapter 2 of our ordinances, also known as the restaurant full liquor license. As you might recall, as we have been through this ordinance, we have created some restrictions in the ordinance to draw some separation between a full liquor license and this restricted restaurant liquor license. As a reminder, one of the key tenets of this license is that the license holder must derive 60% of their revenues from the sale of food, and no more than 40% of their revenues from the sale of alcoholic beverages. 2 readings ago, there were a couple of changes made. The first was to remove language indicating that an establishment that provides recreational activities, permits gambling, or provides mind-altering consumables or inhalants, in addition to selling food, is not considered to be a full-service restaurant. That definition has been removed, and so what remains in Chapter 2.0203 is a pure statutory definition of a restaurant. Secondly, the ordinance was amended to enshrine the fee for this license in ordinance versus doing it in resolution, and the fee has been established in this ordinance at $50,000. I will stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll open a public hearing on this. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this issue? I will close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Jurens, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Thank you very much. Open it up for conversation, comments, questions, council. Councilman Schutte.
I suppose I can start it off. There's been much conversation, so that's why we might not be too vocal this evening, but I appreciate the work being done. One, on the ordinance change, I appreciated the staff's work in trying to craft the ordinance to where there wasn't too many workarounds. We struck some of that language down last go-around, and so that's where we're at today. Part of that, though, really spurred on the THC conversation, which will be a conversation for later on this evening. So my hope is that we'll have some better discussion about the THC side of things with another ordinance. But as far as the restaurant liquor license, appreciate the work we've done to set it apart from the actual, the privately owned liquor license. And I guess I plan on voting for it as is today.
Thank you, Councilman Schutte. Any other comments, questions? And I can give you the final word, Councilman Jurens. I can say something now, and I just wanted to echo those comments. Thank you to everyone on the team, all the city employees who worked on this effort. Also, all the city council members who paid a lot of attention to this, listened to a lot of input from constituents, trying to get to the point where we are now, which is, I think, a pretty good ordinance. It took me a long time personally to get to the point where I can wrap my head around this one and vote for it. When it started, when it was first brought forward, I was not in favor of it, but with the restrictions on it, I can get behind it because I think those restrictions effectively create a separate classification of license that respects, if not protects, the interests of those who own a full liquor license, while also still creating this ability for new restaurants to come into Watertown and try to compete and serve the great citizens of Watertown and also elsewhere. And that is another reason why I can get behind this, because I do know that there are a lot of people in the Midwest, if not in America, that will travel quite a distance to just go to a restaurant. I know that we have restaurants in Watertown already where people are driving, they're making a day trip coming up from Yankton, Omaha, just because they heard about a certain restaurant in town that had done well at a national competition, for instance. And so they will drive all the way up to Watertown and they will spend a lot of money, possibly stay the night, and then go home. Things like that are important to the growth of Watertown, and it is also important that the city council shows that we are listening to constituents when we want to grow the community. So for those reasons, I was able to get to the point where I can support this. And I want to thank everyone for putting in all the work to get to that point. And it shows what teamwork can do. So, Councilman Allen, I know that you had just came in, but I wanted to give Councilman Jurens the last word on this. So if you wanted to say anything. Councilman Jurens, take us home.
Are we sighing relief on this one?
I think there was an audible sigh on my part.
Yeah, I really believe a lot of good things came from this, and a lot of the good things that came from this are these guardrails that we came up through these discussions. The guardrails were absolutely good and needed for this type of a license. I don't know that we read those guardrails fully, but Alan mentioned a few of those. And it really struck a balance, the conversations we've had, while we had to learn, and I guess I had to learn a lot of patience with this, because I was thinking, how hard is it just to drop a license from 100,000 to, I guess, 50? Again, that was good. But I believe it's also good to mention those that testified against this as opposition. Dempsey's, Sean did a very good job and a fair job of talking about the other side of the story. Some things that he mentioned are important. And also the Kosuskis. It was emotional, and it was good to hear the other versions on how it could affect their businesses, values. We heard more from just those, but from others about the value. And a couple calls that I took behind the scenes, they didn't want to use the microphone, but it was about the value of their full liquor license. And, I still believe, and I will believe, and I believe we will see this in a year or 5 years, that the value of their liquor license, which if we all understand, there's a market value because they're restricted in the number of licenses we can have in each city in South Dakota. But I really believe that the story like the mayor just shared about driving that far for a restaurant, for Dempsey's Pizza, is really, really powerful. And that's what I had envisioned when I began talking to citizens and travelers from outside of the city and bringing this forward. Actually, a few months ago, and it's good to see Councilman Danforth here, because he shared the information that Kyle Lallam said in his testimony, that this started months ago. This didn't just start when one person decided to get a restaurant started in town. So this was a culmination of months and maybe even years of listening to people that live around Watertown going, hey, are there other options? And this is also a culmination of travels that all of us do, but specifically in my case, when I'm going and staying in an area outside of Watertown, and you have these options, and you're like, healthy options is really, really becoming a big thing in America. If you haven't heard it, you were going to hear it, that healthy food options are extremely important. And people are really, really gaining a ton of knowledge in the world of which foods are horrible and which foods are good for you to solve a lot of issues that people have been having. And, the world of information is so powerful now, and so this also involves that. Also, I believe our downtown will thrive. I know one of these is located downtown. There could be more. But we have empty buildings in this town, if anybody hasn't checked it out lately, and some of them are downtown. And restaurants that, especially the small, the restaurants that are chef-owned, they're not big operations. They don't come from millions of dollars backing them. So they're going to rent places. They're not going to always buy a place. They're probably going to rent a piece of property. And last, I would say, from a business owner's standpoint, this makes maybe a little bit different sense because of the number of expenses that a restaurant owner has to go through to get to this point. And so when we drop a license from $100,000, which had never been used in 16 years, since 2009, had never been, no one had ever purchased this type of license. So we had zero demand for it, to possibly having 2 standing in line, and I hope there's 1, 2, or 3 more out there that are looking for this. But I believe the city of Watertown, the citizens will have more choices, and people traveling will have more choices because of maybe some things that we've been doing the last few months on this. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. The motion is to approve the ordinance for on-sale licenses for full-service restaurants. If you are in favor of that, vote aye. If you are opposed, vote nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Helene,
Aye.
Mormon,
Aye.
Jurens,
Aye.
Kyle's not on yet. Okay. Shuddy,
Aye.
Allen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Motion carries. Item 10A is an authorization for the city manager to submit an FAA VALE grant, or VALE, grant pre-application identifying a total estimated funding amount of $5 million for solar farm construction. City Manager Stager.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Before you today is a request for approval to apply for a grant for a VALE grant. A VALE grant is a voluntary airport low emissions grant program. It's a program that previously South Dakota airports were not eligible to apply for. It's recently been opened up, and our airport manager, Ian Merriweather, in working with our consultants, recommends that we do apply for this grant. It's estimated that we could find up to $5 million of projects and programs around electricity conservation at the airport. That would be the upper range of what a project may entail. By way of reference, we spend about $100,000 a year for electricity at the airport. And so looking at just the return on investment of $5 million versus $100,000 doesn't make sense on the surface until we start to look at what type of investments can be made to expand beyond the current airport, and as we continue to explore economic development activities at the airport, this becomes much more important. I will stand by for any questions, as well as recognizing that Ian Merriweather is in the audience as well to address any questions you may have specifically from Ian.
And Mr. Merriweather is the director of the Watertown Airport. So if anyone has a question, he's here. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I don't need to open a public hearing. I don't think that there's going to be anybody here to testify, but I will open a public hearing if anyone would like to testify on this item. I'll close the public hearing. Can I get a motion from council to authorize the submission of the grant pre-application? Motion made by Councilman Hoyer, seconded by Councilman Allen. Council, any comments? Councilman Hoyer.
Again, thank you, Ian, for taking the time and finding this opportunity. I think it'd be a great opportunity as a city in general to see if there are other programs like this that might exist out there, because I would argue we have plenty of rooftop space on some big buildings that maybe could facilitate some more solar or alternative energy opportunities for us to take advantage of. And if there's federal programs for those things too, great. But I think it'd be worth exploring.
Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thank you for your work on this. Just a question, maybe a couple of questions here. Is this grant going to be a percentage towards a project, or can it 100% fund a project? I guess that's really my main question on this.
There is a match involved in the project. Our match would be $125,000 if we were awarded a $5 million project.
And then I guess a follow-up would be, any idea what it costs to, for a project of this sort? I mean, I guess it depends on how many panels, or what's the average price for an airport and for doing a project like this?
It's all based off of usage. So each panel offsets a specific amount of kilowatt hours. Therefore, we just took in preliminary estimates, took our average usage, and we just multiplied that of how many panels we would need, a specific area, and it's very small, about 0.2, 0.3 acres. And again, we don't have designs yet. This is simply preliminary or a pre-grant, but it wouldn't affect any greenery. It would essentially be on either the rooftop, around the parking lot, something very inconspicuous, but it would offset our total electricity usage.
Thank you.
Councilman Jurgens.
So from a perspective of an individual business owner, in the past, I did some research on solar and found out that we couldn't sell the product if we had extra electricity. Now, being a government entity, it's maybe different. Are you able, if we have more than the $100,000 worth of electricity, is there an ability to hook into the grid to sell that, or are we spending $5 million to save $100,000?
There is an option to upgauge the system. And again, this $5 million is a very preliminary estimate, but there is potential for that. And I've had preliminary talks with the WMU, and the system is set up for that. So they have a buyback program if there's additional electricity put back into the system.
Councilman Jurgens.
So we're not going to waste government money. We're going to put it to use.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Merriweather. What would the timeline be on submitting this application, and when might we expect to hear back?
That would be January through February. We'd assume a decision if we got the award, then we would place the application in somewhere around August, and we would hear back if when we get the award for the schedule, and then we could go out for bidding and so on and so forth. So actual construction from November 1st when it's due to 2027 to be determined construction.
Thank you. All right, any last comments? The motion is to authorize the submission of the FAA Vail Grant pre-application. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Hoyer?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
Jurgens?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
All in favor.
Motion is unanimous. In favor. Now we are on to an approval of an ordinance amending Title 13, Offenses and Regulation, Chapter 1303, Public Safety, regarding the regulation of the sale, purchase, and possession of psychoactive hemp-derived products. And I will first go to City Manager Stager, and I have a couple preliminary questions, preliminary remarks as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let you make your remarks, and then please turn it over to Chief Toomey.
Sure. And I just wanted to say, Part of the work that the council has done on the on-sale license for full-service restaurants brought forward a discussion about how to classify THC-infused beverages. Now, these are hemp or marijuana, depending on, I'm not going to argue semantics with anyone out there. We know what we're talking about, which was part of the difficulty that we as a council had, because we needed to come to the point where we could all kind of agree where we're at, because some of us knew about these drinks, some of us didn't. Some of us knew about like how you could put this in gummy bears, and some of us didn't. And so the level of knowledge is, let's say, sparse and not equal, depending upon who you are on the council. So some good questions were raised as to how to classify this when it comes to the on-sale full restaurant license. Because you have a 60-40 split. Does THC-infused beverages count as alcohol? Does it count as food? We didn't know. So we started doing some research, and we still didn't know. I'll say I, along with other people, called entities out in Pierre. I had a conversation with the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General has some people who do believe that this is covered and it is outlawed at the state level, but the problem is it's never been challenged, it's never been enforced, and it's never been put into implementation. So there still is the question as to whether or not it is covered under state law. So for lack of anything forcing it, we are operating, and everyone else in South Dakota is operating under the belief that it is not covered. So then I called the Department of Revenue, and they expressly told me that for their purposes, for taxation, which when it comes to government, how we tax something is pretty much how we feel about it. Just to be honest, because it's all about the money. For the South Dakota Department of Revenue, they classify all THC-infused beverages as soft drinks, which means technically there is no limit as far as age comes when it goes to purchasing or possessing or ingesting these things. That raised a question with the council. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I know I am of the mindset that we don't want these in the hands of someone under the age of 21. So the restaurant liquor license brought forward this conversation and brought forward to where we are tonight, where we are having a discussion upon a first reading. I'm not certain if at the end of this discussion we will be at a first reading, or the first reading will be this upcoming Monday, because I think that there is going to be some language that we need to talk about, possibly some procedural maneuvers to make sure we are not violating the Single Clause Act when it comes to dealing with an ordinance. So there will be some things that we will discuss, but first we want to have a presentation upon the need, because for many people in the community, and I will just say myself, was very ignorant of how pervasive these products might be in our community and what effect they might be having upon everyone, especially young people. So I want to thank those people who are here to come forward and present to us the need, because I think council is unanimous and we want to know more so that we can deal with this, and we want to protect the people of Watertown, especially the youth. But we don't want great intentions to follow through with poor execution. So we will have a discussion and we will move forward to the best of our ability as to figuring out what we can do to stop the sale and stop young people from getting this in the community. That was a long way of getting us there, but I think it's important for people to understand how it is that we got here. I will go to Chief Tim Toomey of the Watertown Police Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, City Manager. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this important topic. I want to start off by saying this isn't a police department topic. This isn't a city topic. This is a community topic. And we're here as a united community to ask for you guys to pass an ordinance that protects our youth. It started out with civilians, former councilmen, prevention specialists, the city, all looking at this topic and realizing there's a loophole and there is a reason that we need to put in an ordinance that protects our kids. This is all about protecting kids. This isn't about a debate on the legalization of marijuana or what's right and what's wrong. This is about protecting our kids and what's right for our kids. So with that, I have a brief presentation, and then we brought with us Carrie Johnson from the Human Service Agency, president, right?
Executive Director.
Executive Director. Nancy Gilbertson from the Vape Depot. She's been really instrumental on the education. And also Kelly Rumsa, she's a prevention specialist from Human Service Agency. So I'm going to run through this PowerPoint really quickly because these guys are the experts and they're going to answer any of your questions that you might have. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of misinformation. So this is about education as much as it is about implementing an ordinance. There is no law saying saying that there's a 21-year-old age limit. So we're going to get into this real quick. That doesn't sound right, Pete.
Sing it.
There we go. Oh, okay. How far did we go? Back. Nope. Back. Okay, there we go. So the Farm Bill, in 2018, a federal Farm Bill was passed, and that removed hemp from the federal list of controlled substances, and this is where it all started. Industrial hemp and hemp-derived products, as long as they didn't contain 0.3% delta-9 THC by dry weight. And that's a very important part that you're going to hear over and over again that we need to keep in mind. But it opened the door for CBD oils, hemp, extracts, edibles, drinks, and such to be produced and sold across the country. Wrong button. Okay, there is a loophole, however. They didn't think about this. And please jump in if I get anything wrong. But the 0.03% was meant for plant material at harvest. So when they say THC can't constitute more than 0.3% of the dry weight, that's of the plant, and that's measured at harvest. So when it's extracted and put into other products, you're increasing the amount of THC. Although it might be under the 0.3% of that total weight, it's still a lot more per milligram of THC that's being put into these drinks and gummies and what have you. There is absolutely no state regulation over it. There's no federal information that we could rely on for South Dakota. So there's no testing, there's no labeling, there's no fact checking, there's no regulation whatsoever. Correct?
Oh,
Red light.
Red
is good.
light is on your arm.
There's a little bit in South Dakota codified law, and you might see that in some of the printouts that I had for you that specifically designs it. So there is a little bit, like your product still can't have more than 0.3% of Delta-9, but that opens the whole can of worms when you're talking THCA, and we'll get into that later.
So it's an ever-evolving, IT took my screen away. It's an ever-evolving topic, and products are coming out left and right. Delta-8 and Delta-10 were identified by the legislation. Come on, IT, are you doing this on purpose? They recognize the dangerous, not dangerous, but the effects of Delta-8 and Delta-10. So they did prohibit that being sold to anybody under 21. So that is illegal, but it fell very short about controlling or regulating the issue. So it's only Delta-8 and THCO. And if you want explanations of what every one of those chemicals are, Nancy will answer those for you. So it is for 21, Delta-8, Delta-10, you cannot possess it, or you cannot sell it to anyone under 21. They can't sell it to anyone in South Dakota. Unfortunately, some of our shops are still selling it, and we're trying to stay on top of that. It is legal for somebody to possess as long as they're an adult, possess and use, but you can't sell it.
Correct.
Correct. Oops, is that weird clicker? Okay, also, they made it illegally to chemically derive anything from the hemp plant, well, not anything, but as you can see, is the statue up front. anything chemically derivative of the hemp plant is illegal. So you can't wash something in battery acid and then sell it. But that's being done.
Excuse me, Chief, that's being done?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Go ahead.
What he means is that they take CBD because that's the most, that's the biggest cannabinoid that's in an industrial hemp plant. And in a lab, they can take and actually use chemicals to make it into Delta 9, Delta 8, Delta 10. So we call that chemically modified.
Yes, and there's such a small amount of that chemical in the CBD plant that it has to be chemically modified to produce any effect, correct?
So, I mean, there's still always going to be Delta 9. And that's why, and because of definitions, that's why you see that. But when you're talking about these small, and you can refer to them as minor cannabinoids, like your Delta 8s and your Delta 10s, THCPs, HHCs, all this kind of stuff, it's just not going to be there and in a consumable product unless you made it intentionally by taking like CBD first and in a lab or heat process, whatever types of, not necessarily battery acid, that wouldn't be the correct term, but there's other chemicals that they use in the processing of it.
And it brings up a good topic, is some people believe there's a difference between the chemical makeup of the marijuana plant versus, or the cannabis plant versus the hemp plant. The only difference is the THC, the Delta 9, 0.3% or less, and that's what makes it a hemp plant.
Correct.
Okay, so why do we need an ordinance? There is absolutely no state law prohibiting the sale of these THC-infused drinks. They contain 0.3% or less, allegedly, contain that amount of THC, but again, it's per milligram. So if you're consuming more, you're ingesting more of the THC Delta 9, which does have an effect on a young person. And I'll let the prevention specialist or whoever talk about how that affects the brain in a young person, but they are intoxicating drinks. Assistant Chief Remmers and I went around the community to see what's out there in the community, and there is a lot of this being sold under many, many different brand names. But every person we talk to who have tried it or sell it say they are intoxicating, and that they tried them themselves and they did get high off of them. So they are dangerous for our youth to use. What adult does with it, it's legal, but what a child does with it, it's wrong. So we came across it, like the mayor said, when we were looking at the full-service restaurant license, and it was a shock to me, as well as a lot of people, that there was no law against the 21 being able to buy these THC-infused drinks, buy and use them. So what happens? So the 0.03% is based on dry weight. It's liquid drink can still legally contain enough milligrams of THC to cause a noticeable effect. And there is no regulation, so it's from can to can. I even talked to one shop owner, he said one can could have enough THC to get you high, and the next can won't have any effect on you. It also has to do with the amount of pre-use that you've had. If you're a chronic marijuana user, you're not gonna get as affected with it, but if you're new to using those products, then you're gonna get a bigger effect. But 10 milligrams of THC, which is a common amount labeled on the can, and again, there's no regulation, so you don't know if the labels are correct or not. But it's roughly equivalent to the standard edible dose, which is definitely psychoactive. These are some pictures of some of the shops in Watertown, the shops and grocery stores that we went to. If you have any questions about these being causing you to be high, just go to the Giggly White website and see how they're advertising it. They're actually advertising it as it's a fun way to get high, their own product. So these are intoxicating. That little shot in the middle, and it's also interesting because although they'll sell a 12-ounce can, but they'll put 2 servings in that 12-ounce can. So you have more THC that you're consuming. In that little thing in my hand there, that's 2 servings. So that's how they get around the law to make it 0.3% per serving. Also, the gummies, now they're infusing gummies. That was at one of our local liquor stores where you could just get a package of gummies, THC-infused gummies, right off the shelf, which was supposed to be only for medical. So There is an immediate risk to our youth if they start using the stuff. You can see on the screen what it does to you, and I'll let the experts talk more about that. But we do see the effects of all these analogs. I can tell you story after story of children who have been hospitalized because they got into this product. An 8-year-old boy, autistic boy, got into a Delta 8 cookie and was having seizures in his front yard. A 2-year-old got a hold of mom's gummies and ended up in the emergency room. So this is affecting our youth, and they are dangerous, and we need to do something as a community to protect our kids. Is it going to solve the problem? No. We understand we can't arrest our way out of a problem, but with a community united like we are, I think we can send a clear message to parents that get educated on this stuff before you start allowing your kid to use it. With that, one more thing I'm going to talk about, which is a topic that we need to really think seriously about as a community. It's THCA. THCA is being sold. It looks, I think Nancy brought some with her so you guys could look at it, but it looks, smells, and acts like marijuana. It's just when you test it, as it's sitting on the shelf, it doesn't have any Delta-9 in it. But it automatically converts to Delta-9 marijuana as soon as you light it. So you apply heat, what's that word, Nancy? Decarboxylation? Yeah, decarboxylation. But as soon as you add heat to it, and we're gonna weigh that again, Mayor, when you give it back.
I think everyone saw my reaction on that one.
So this is being sold legally in the shops, and you
I've
can
been
buy.
in Minneapolis enough times to know when I smell marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, one other comment that I'll have before I turn it over to the experts is that we did see some products for one of the shops. We sent it in for testing, and it was over the 0.3% THC. I think Nancy can attest to how CBD breaks down as it sits on the shelf. It breaks down into a higher potency. So again, that 0.3% dry weight is measured at harvest. By the time it's set on a shelf and sold to the public, it's above that 0.3%, which is really breaking our laws for medical marijuana. I mean, so. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you. You can either step up here or
We're gonna
tag team it.
I apologize, I have to leave for another meeting here in a few minutes, but my name is Carrie Johnston, I'm the Executive Director of the Human Service Agency, and I will hand it off to the brains of the Human Service Agency here shortly. Kelly Rumps is very well-researched in all things prevention, but I do ask that everyone consider strongly the effects these products have on just everyone. We have done, I do a lot of the interventions, so a lot of the clinicians at HSA do crisis evaluations over at our crisis stabilization facility. And what we have found since legalizing medical marijuana and all the Delta products, the aggressive behavior has been amplified like exponentially. We have people that are destroying our safe rooms, that are aggressive, assaultive, that would present as mentally ill, but often are not mentally ill because they're under the influence of these substances, and they will admit to that at some point, or their family will admit to that at some point. So when you're looking at what effect these products can have on kids, it is dangerous. You might think to yourself, the kid could use one drink and they're not going to be intoxicated. I think someone mentioned that, but the fact is people never stop at one. We had an individual in one of our halfway houses who eloped and ate an entire package of mushrooms. The directions on the package indicated 1 mushroom per day. And of course, because if one makes me feel kind of good, imagine what 10 will do. And so they don't stop at that one drink or one substance. Did you have a question?
I did. Is it okay?
Yeah, Councilman Hoyer.
With the aggression and stuff, is it just this substance that they're on, or are they on a plethora?
It only tests positive as THC in their system, so I don't really know that. I mean, they would indicate that I don't know if it's a lot of the Delta products that they are on, a lot of them, or if it's just that. But it's not methamphetamine, it's not,
Okay, they
cocaine.
test clean for cocaine and
Correct.
everything else, and
Correct.
bath salts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's
what we
just
can
this
test
that's in the
for.
system.
Yeah, this kratom is another big one that we were seeing that they will admit to, but also test positive as THC as well, so. But it really influences a person's behaviors for sure, so. But I do ask that you think a lot about the effects this would have on kids. If you think about historically speaking, you know, I grew up in a generation where we didn't even have to wear seatbelts because we didn't know the safety of a seatbelt. You know, my mom's arm was the seatbelt, much like many of you. And fast forward, now you can't drive a car without that dinging to remind you to put your seatbelt on. And we are just here to tell you, let's do that same thing for these THC drinks. Thank you.
I ran the statistics for people under 21 arrest for the last 5 years for drug offenses. This year already, we're at 62 people under 21 who's been arrested for drug offenses. In 2024, there was 76, and in 2023, there was 107, which is definitely an increase since these products became legal. So when people say, well, we don't really have a drug problem in Watertown, we do have a drug problem in Watertown. We do have kids that are experimenting it, and we need to give them the tools necessary to make the good decisions. And before we go on, I just want to point out these people in the background. They're called PEEPs, the young people in the background, peer educating and empowering peers. So encouraging peers. So I appreciate them coming in to show that the youth care about this too. It's not just the adults.
So I'll actually have you, could I ask you to stand up and just wave hi? You don't? Thank you. Councilman Hoyer has a question.
Yeah, I was curious for a point of clarification. The drug arrests that you made, were they for the Delta-9 products? Was it a mix of products? And then the examples you gave of the child having the seizure in the front lawn, was that in Watertown or was that
Yes.
somewhere else?
That was in Watertown.
Okay.
Possession of marijuana, possession of drug paraphernalia, ingesting a toxic substance, and possession, ingestion of synthetic substances like Delta-8 is what the arrests were for.
Okay. Was there any Delta-9 specifically, or,
Possession of marijuana, yes.
okay, was it I know we're kind of having that weird split. This is the education piece. So was it marijuana, or was it like a product like this, or was it?
It doesn't say in the statistics, Delta-9 is Delta-9, though. I don't know if it was marijuana or a
Well, I guess
synthetic.
I'm just asking, like, did they have a giggly in the car or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Kelly?
Sure. So my name is Kelly Rumsa. I'm from the Human Service Agency as well. And my piece of this is, our role is to do a lot of education and awareness. And we've been doing education the last few years specifically on these different products. And our focus has been looking at product packaging of the products and how similar they look to products our kids would use on an everyday basis versus what the products are intended for adult use. And so we've used that as our conversation piece to show parents, adult community members, what these products do look like. And it is very concerning. I've been in prevention for over 25 years and have dealt with a lot of different trends and products that we've seen across in our community that impact our youth. And the consistent piece that we see is that industry, when I say industry, I mean those who are making these products and trying to make a profit and selling them in our communities and things like that, they're just trying to get their next generation. They need to have people use these products so that they can be successful and fill their products. They're not concerned about the health and well-being of our youth, of our communities, and then it's our responsibility of the community to step up and take responsibility of protecting our youth. And so that means not only of the products of access in retail world, but also access socially. And so that's why we need this education. Yes, we need to differentiate between what adult use is and what youth use is, but as adults, with us using these products, we also need to be responsible with our use as well. But I just want to touch really brief on some of the health risks for youth and young adults, and this could be applicable to adults as well. But specifically with the THC drinks, with intoxication and overdose, teens may mistakenly drink too much, too quickly, due to the appealing packaging and especially the delay effects leading to overdose. So if someone is smoking marijuana, usually the effects are much quicker. When you consume it, it takes longer for your system, and so it takes 30 minutes, an hour to 2 hours for that impact. So being a teen and being curious and things like that, they're like, well, I'm not getting an effect, so I'm gonna consume more of this product, and then that's where we're gonna see that intoxication and overdose. Also, as Carrie had stressed, the mental health emergencies, it can cause severe paranoia, panic attacks, hallucinations, and psychosis. And a lot of the packaging, or what you'll see when the ads pop up on social media, is that it's a healthy alternative, it's gluten-free, it's no hangover. And those type of messages, when teens see them, think then it must be something okay for them to use. And so really targeting that marketing and what are those trigger words that people look at that think that it's a safe alternative. Some physical symptoms too is, severe nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and impaired coordination. So it's going to slow reaction time and motor skills as well as that aggression piece of it too. A couple of the legal and product-related risks that I also wanted to bring up in regards to THC products and Delta products is that they are not regulated. So it's different than alcohol. Alcohol has to go through this process of what's in the can, the labeling, and everything like that. With these products, because they're not regulated and not FDA approved, misleading products. Hemp-derived THC drinks are not comprehensive regulated at the federal level, so that means the labeling can be inaccurate, or the drink could contain more and have more harmful synthetic products in there, and that's the other piece of it. You don't know what you could be consuming because we don't know exactly what's in that labeling. And we've checked some of the labeling, like they say, scan our QR code for test results. You scan the QR code and it doesn't go anywhere. So they're doing what they're doing, so people are like, oh, well, they have the QR code or they have this label, but it's not taking you anywhere to look for that. And the average person is not going to take the time to look up that information. They're trusting what is on that labeling. Also, easy accessibility. Having these hemp-derived products in places like grocery and convenience stores increase that risk of accidental or intentional use by teens. And that's just that the more access that we have of these products, the more likely we're going to see consumption rates go up. And that's typical in any type of behavior. And then I just wanted to go back to the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA has stated that it's illegal to sell products with added THC or CBD across state lines and has not approved their use in food or dietary supplements. And so the agency has expressed concern about the lack of safety testing and oversight for these consumer products. So again, it's coming back down on state level, it's coming back down on the community level. And with all of these different products coming and flooding our community, it's hard to stay current in what these products can do. And so that's why we take it upon ourselves to do this research, to see what's out in our community and better educate our lawmakers, our decision makers, so that they too can have that input and help our youth to be safe. And it is concerning. And that's why we provide the handouts like I shared with you earlier. Those are resources that we try to provide out into the community as well. So if there's any other additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them, or if I missed something that you wanted me to address, I can bring that up as well.
This isn't only a Watertown issue, this is a state issue. I've been working with the Police Chiefs Association. We've been contacting senators and lobbyists, and everybody's trying to figure their way through this muddy topic, and they want to do what's right for the community. There are a lot of shop owners that want to do the right thing, including Nancy here, and we'll give her an opportunity to speak.
My name is Nancy Gilbertson. I am the owner of Vape Depot and Smoke Shop. I'm a firm believer that it is a personal choice to consume lifestyle harm reduction products. I am also a strong advocate for responsible rules and regulations that protect public health without banning products and unintentionally create black markets. I am here today because of, obviously, the community issue and the statewide issue that we have. As you've seen, I have some handouts that you received, and I also had like many revised ordinance recommendations. Just so you're aware, I spent over 20 hours probably staring at my computer screen thinking about any loophole, how I could exploit the original ordinance that was wrote, and I did that on Friday or Saturday. So I've already put in well over 20 hours of staring at it. So I have basically 5 major concerns. THC and state law. Technically, THCA is neither marijuana nor an industrial hemp product under South Dakota codified laws. Stores are selling THC, marketing it as a legal hemp product under federal law, not South Dakota law. If we don't address this THCA issue, this ordinance will fail to achieve what its full intentions are. It is also worth noting that some may argue that THCA is not intoxicating in its raw form, which further complicates enforcement. My second point, youth access. I do not believe industrial hemp products should be available to, I should say industrial hemp intoxicating products should be available to anyone under the age of 18. The proposed ordinance only addresses that those under the age of 21 do not have anything with THC. But it does not restrict the access, like I said, to those under 18. As far as just like CBD products in general, like I don't think a 5-year-old should be able to go into a store, buy a bag of CBD products because those are considered a non-intoxicating cannabinoid. My third point is definitions are extremely important. So the complexities of the industrial hemp products are not as simple as they may appear. And as I stated, I spent over 20 hours just staring at the ordinance thinking, how could I exploit this? Where's the loopholes in this? What looks good on paper may seem good until I look at it and tell you how I'm going to exploit it. My fourth point is licensing and responsible sales. So I would support an additional city license for retailers who sell industrial hemp products, outlining rules and regulations for responsible sales. These products should be sold by knowledgeable staff who understand the intricacies of the different cannabinoids and their effects. And then my final concern is the certificate of analysis. And if some of you had COAs that were in here that came along with some of the products that I purchased from 3 stores. So a certificate of analysis is a standard in the hemp industry, even though it is technically not required on finished products. So essentially what happens is when a hemp producer grows their hemp product, about 30 days before they harvest it, it's tested and it has a COA at that point in time that has to prove that their industrial hemp in their field has less than 0.3% of total Delta-9 concentration. So that actually includes THCA plus Delta-9 at that time. But as far as like any products that are on the market, we just know better than having a product that has over 0.3%, but most people are trying to follow the whole Delta-9 and not Delta-9 plus THCA rule. So in the products that I had purchased from 3 of my competing stores, 1 store carried 2 products marketed as THCA, but when I pulled up the COAs for them, I actually found that there were chemically modified cannabinoids, including like THCP, Delta-8 in those products. But the front of the packaging just said it was THCA, completely misleading. It's against the law. The 2 stores had THC flower, and if you notice, there's no, just a label on it, very generic. It's gonna look just like it's weed. There's no way to get a COA on that and have any. The person who purchased it for me said that the one packaging is 33% THCA. So if you were to do the comparison of how THCA is in relation to Delta-9, that would be like selling Delta or marijuana next door to, you know, in their medical dispensary, which would be about 29%. Because when THCA does change to Delta-9, it's about a 0.877 transfer rate.
Which it's illegal to sell any product meant for smoking, correct?
It should be,
It is.
but it's being exploited.
Councilman Hoyer?
So just to reference that for everyone, that's codified law 383521, industrial hemp for smoking prohibited. Violation is misdemeanor. I'll just read it for you guys so you have it.
Yeah.
The sale or use of industrial hemp for smoking or inhaling is prohibited. Violation of this section is a class 1 misdemeanor.
Yep.
Can't smoke it or inhale it.
And that's where, like I said, I picked up pre-rolls, I picked up, you know, disposables. Now, flour can be disputed because people will be like, oh, we cook with that. Oh, we use it in our smoothies as a raw product. So that's where THC becomes our nightmare, literally, is what I'd like to call THCA in my world. And then 2 of the products that I purchased, it took me over 30 minutes, like she referred to, you know, you can snap the thing, go to them. And obviously, I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm pretty handy at knowing how to get to the certificate of analysis. Took me over 30 minutes, and I might have the right one for you guys in the package. I couldn't tell you for sure. So in closing, I support regulations, but they must be enforceable, consistent, and based on reality, not loopholes. Let's protect the community, ensure responsible sales, and prevent black market conditions created by weak definitions and unchecked products. Thank you for your time, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you. City Manager Stager, you had something to say, I'm sorry.
I was going to announce that Councilman Peters is online now.
Okay. Councilman Peters, welcome. Right.
Good afternoon.
Do we have any more presenters, public input?
Well, I think we're going to turn it over for questions, but currently, law enforcement's handcuffed. We can't enforce these ambiguous laws. The state is working on it. We can't wait for the state to come to some sort of agreement on what laws to pass. We have to worry about our own community in Watertown. And I implore you guys to keep this on the front of your decision-making and do what's right for the kids, not what's right for us individually, but what's right for the kids and what's right for the future of this community.
Thank you. I do believe that we have someone else who would like to address the council. I would just say, if anyone, I was a believer in doing this before even today, but learning so much more in a short period of time just reinforces that need. And if anyone has a question, walk out of the room like I just did to grab a Diet Coke and come back in, and if you can't smell a really distinct difference in this room from what it was before these packages were opened. And I am by no means an expert. I can honestly say I've never had or touched an illegal drug in my life. But I've spent enough time in places where medical marijuana is legal that you know the smell now. You can't avoid it. And this is the smell of marijuana.
Well, and one of the things, though, that they're getting creative with their products and things like that by having the THC-infused drinks and other vape products is it doesn't have that traditional smell or that effect, too. So that's other things that we have to be aware of, too, is that they're continually trying to refine these products so that it is less detected, that it looks like everyday products or it might taste like everyday products. So people are thinking then, oh, this must be okay, so this is something we can use. And it's a lot of deceit, and that's unfortunate, especially when we're trying to educate our students. And with technology and social media, typically the first thing that teens see is what they believe, and then it takes at least 7+ more times for us to reverse that information. So if they see an ad come up, or if they're told by someone else of this information, then it's challenging for us then to give them accurate information. And so we really encourage anyone to research about it. If you don't know anything about it, to look up the resources that are provided and just have conversations with youth that you know too. And it's just that opportunity for everybody to learn together and just to look at that safety and health and well-being.
Mayor, I bring up one more topic that you mentioned, vaping, and that is still, if it's above the 0.3%, it's still a controlled substance. And what I'm hearing from the middle school people is that kids are accidentally ingesting the THC vapes because they think they're nicotine vapes, and they look the same. So they're actually accidentally getting exposed to that product. So,
All right, thank you. All right, and Chief, you can step aside. I'll see if anyone else wants to address the council.
Mayor and Council, my name is Mike Danforth, and number one, I appreciate the work that you've done on the restaurant license, and was the impetus behind where this all became an issue, at least from my perspective. As I kind of sat on the outside looking in and watching what was going on, the work that you were doing with that license, and all of a sudden this THC factor came to play, and it was like, I got confused as heck. And so what I just want to share a little bit, you've heard a lot of the technical side of things here and maybe the legal side of things here, but I think I share, not all by no means, but a lot of the public's perspective, and that is one of confusion. and probably disappointment as well, because I want to talk about the public's common sense approach and responsible approach to this. And this really deals with, call it our youth, anything, well, at this point, 21 and less. I was shocked to know that, I think Mary used the term ignorant, naive, whatever all those words are, that you could buy and consume THC-type products. I wasn't at all aware of that. My wife has been a part of, I think it's Watertown Healthy Youth, and so she's kind of brought me snippets back from her meetings a little bit, but it's kind of maybe where you hear about it, it's not really that direct, or you think it's a one-of scenario. So when this thing popped up and I started asking questions and educating myself on this, there were some things in regards to how the ordinance that you passed earlier was written. And so I've been heavily involved with the mayor and city manager Stagger in regards to expressing my concerns and sharing ideas and thoughts there. And I appreciate them taking the time to listen. And like I told them the other day, I'm not at all technical on this. I'm going to believe what these people have to say and what experts have to say. As I also shared with the mayor and Mr. Stagger the other day is, I didn't do all that well in biology or chemistry when I was in school, but the good news is both of those were better than my algebra classes. So anyway, so I'm here today to share what I've learned about this in regards to communicating with other people. And that is the general public, most of the general public certainly is confused as I am. As I've talked to people, they say, well, you can't buy that product. You can't use those products. And yes, you can. And so the public is ignorant to the fact of what really is true and what isn't true. And what is surprising me a little bit is how unclear our state laws are. To really know, is it regulated? Is it not regulated? Is it against the law? Is it okay? Is there an age limit? It's all over the board. So this process that we're going to go through, are going through, I think, at least locally, I believe will benefit the public educationally. I think the presentation that was given will be beneficial. I think we need to continue this process as you go down the road of looking at proper ordinance language. I was shocked to even think that today, I've heard that the people that are selling these products are self-regulating themselves and checking for 21, but there's no assurity that that's going to happen. It's great that they may be doing that, but there's no meat on that bone. They don't have to, from what I understand today. So little Johnny gets a $10 a week allowance, and he decides to go into a convenience store or restaurant that's serving these sodas or pops, or whatever you want to call them. He can spend his $10 if they want to sell it to him and him or her. And that's just wrong. And so we as a community, the ordinance language that is being proposed is not banning this. That's for somebody way smarter than I. That's really probably a peer issue, our legislators. I do believe that what is before you and what I hope to be the action that you take in support of this once you get the language on this kind of narrowed down and clarified, cleaned up a little bit. I do believe you are taking a responsible and you're taking a good leadership role on issues like this. To my understanding, and Chief, maybe you can validate this, but I think I had asked if there were other communities in the state of South Dakota that had initiated age limits, and I believe you had said you weren't aware of any, if I was correct. And that's okay. We find ourselves out on that limb all by ourselves right now, little old Watertown, but we've been there before. And 15, 16, 17 years ago, whatever it is, it came to our attention within our community I'm going to use the brand name. It's a synthetic marijuana called K2. There's a bunch of them. That this was being bought and sold and consumed within our community. And once that really we became knowledgeable enough about it, we went as Little Old Watertown and we worked to create an ordinance that banned its sale, use, and possession within our city limits. That eventually it filtered out to some other communities and ultimately ended up in Pierre, where those products are banned statewide. That's a leadership and a responsibility role that I think we all have as a community, as leaders. I hope that's where this gets with the age limits. They'll figure out whether it should be legal or not. That's up to them. But this does not belong in the hands of anybody that is younger than the 21. There's the argument of 18, you can go fight in a war, but can't. Well, that's a separate fight here, right? Today, we know that most of our age restrictions are all at that 21 level, alcohol, tobacco type stuff. So, not easy being out on that limb sometimes, but let's go out there, let's get there, let's pass this, let's take care of our community members, especially our youth, and let's put these restrictions in place. And I hope you move in that direction. I'm confident that you will move in that direction. Thank you for your effort, Mayor. Thank you for listening, and City Manager Stagger for your listening to me and accepting input. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Come on, I'd say we have a peep come up or two.
One of you sit with me? Now it is.
And you can pull up a couple extra chairs
Oh, I
from the
get two.
sides too.
Oh, I get all of them. How exciting. Hi, I'm Haley Rao, or they all know me as Mrs. Rao. I'm at the Watertown Middle School, and I teach drug prevention there. PEEPS started as a peer leadership group. They identify what's going on in their school, and they want to address it. Sometimes it's bullying, sometimes it's vaping's a big one, and marijuana has been a topic that these guys have been even trained on. We went to a peer leadership training in March and heard from people out of Colorado understanding the dangers of marijuana. And I really wanted them to come here today so that before I was coaching them when they walked in, I asked them, or I told them, I was like, yeah, we're coming in here so that hopefully you guys can represent banning THC products for people under the age of 21. That's our biggest concern. They're like, isn't that already done yet? It's like, not yet, but that's why we're here. And I think that opening this conversation is a great piece, and seeing our kids here is also another great piece, because they want to live in a community that they know that people care about them. They know that they're protected by the adults in the community, and that, we're educating people on adult products. They don't want to, and tobacco and nicotine's a huge thing at their age, but they don't want to have to worry about being in school and worrying also about marijuana in the schools, whether it's synthetic, like THC, Delta-8, all those. And it is hard as a drug prevention specialist working in a school setting, because I have to teach this to 600 kids. And how do you get this information across, especially if they miss a day of class? When I'm teaching the kids about this stuff, I tell them all the time, like, hey, some of these products, you might get charged as a felony. Do you know what a felony is? And then we talk about it. Because like Chief Toomey said, when it's in an altered state, that can be possession of a controlled substance. And some of these products being sold from the industry trickling down, are in an altered state. And so we're just here to represent that. We want to keep, these guys safe, keep them making good decisions and being a part of their community. And being here today was a big privilege for us. So thank you. You guys have anything? No, okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council on this issue? Okay, I'll close public testimony for now. Please stand by for possible questions that would come from council. But I will now open it up for council, including discussion. So I will just ask council for right now that we can have a broad-based discussion, but there are a couple different things. First off, I would say if anyone disagrees with the need for addressing this, we can have that discussion. But if people do agree on the need, then let's figure out the best way to move forward for Watertown, because as several people have said, thus far, no one has taken a leadership issue on this. Thank you very much for coming, Mrs. Rao, and all the peeps. No one has stepped forward to take on this issue in the state that we're aware of. I will say that I did have a conversation on Friday with one of the attorneys in the Attorney General's office in South Dakota, and I asked him if we were within our rights, if he knew anybody else who was doing it. They didn't know, but he said you are within your rights as a municipality to address this, so we can definitely move forward with this. But with that said, as we are the first, we want to make sure that we're doing it as good as we can, and that means let's try to get the language right. We can still move forward while making sure we do our best. I think City Attorney Carrico is looking at me like she might have something to say, so I can go with you, but, so I encourage council to go ahead, look at it, and ask questions about how we can do it best. There are a couple different things that I would ask council to consider. One of the things that I think we could do is split this up into different ordinances. I would have to figure out, because there was concern as to whether or not this is taking on more than one topic at a time. Now, I think if you bring forward a complete ordinance, that would be one topic to address a new product. But I would also ask if anyone does have a question regarding this, if we split it up and just, let's say, no one may possess this 21 and under, and yet we might not get 100% of the way there, but if we start it with that, just say like, these products that we know about, 21 and under, you can't have them. While we figure out exactly what, the steps are for the other aspects of it. That way, we keep moving forward upon this without waiting. If we wait for an absolutely perfect ordinance, we might be waiting a long time. I think we could start moving forward addressing this issue with things that we can agree upon where the language can work. So that's just one of the questions. Enforcement, I think, might be a different one as a question as far as that goes. City Manager Stager.
A couple of notes as I've looked at this and like some council feedback on how you would like us to address it. There are potentially three different ordinances we could bring forward. One would be age restrictions on the hemp-derived THC products. The second would be any type of special prohibition or restrictions on the THCA products. And then thirdly, a definition of where the products fall in terms of the classification of food or non-food, or alcoholic beverages or non-alcoholic beverages. There's some confusion there in terms of classification, especially in light of the restaurant liquor license. So those would be three topics I would put forward for some thought and discussion.
I'll open it up for council discussion. Councilman Hoyer.
I think the biggest thing out the gate is just, first, so I reached out to a lot of places that have the product too, and just asked them, what their understanding is of it and how they currently enforce the product, if they card, if they do whatever. Every place that I called started first off with, I thought you had to be 21. Because again, most of the cans have that on them. They're coming from distributors who sell alcohol. So most of them do get that. I think it would be worthwhile to go ahead and make that explicit, because I agree with Chief Toomey, like you go on the state website, you can't find anything, and I've looked for quite a while. There's nothing that really explicitly says it, that it's 21 and up. So I think it's worth addressing that, and then maybe defining what the repercussions are for the event that someone gets caught consuming underage, and then also whoever sold it in that regard too, or selling to an underage person, what that actually is going to constitute as a punishment, so that there is some meat behind it, as we would say. But I imagine that would look a lot like what we already do for alcohol. But that would just be my recommendation in, you know, to kick it off. I think that'd be a great place to go with it. Regardless, I don't think it'll change much of the status quo of how it's being handled, so it shouldn't be that contentious. Some of the concerns that I kind of have seeing some of this stuff is that you smoke a dab, let's start there, and this literally has instructions to smoke it. And so it's illegal in South Dakota. You know, that's separate, and these are the ones that have the THCA and stuff, and assuming these came from here, I don't know where they were obtained from directly. I would say we need to probably do a better job of enforcement on that, because there is already law on the books for that. And so we should probably take a good hard look at that one. Even if they have Delta-9 on it, regardless of the THCA, I mean, you can't inhale or smoke it. So I think it's just that we uphold the laws that are already on the books on that, and, yeah, go from there. But, yeah, open for more thoughts.
Councilman Hoyer, yeah, I agree. Do you have an idea on what the penalty might be?
You know, it's hard to say. I know that in this initial ordinance proposal that was put forward, it talked about removing permits and stuff. Well, there are no permits right now for THC, so I don't know what permit we're talking about there. But, you know, the current statute for if you sell an underage drink is, I think, $500. I think that seems like a reasonable place to start. You should be carding. And so, and again, most places are. They have it set up in their systems to require it. And so, you know, I don't see somebody's 15-year-old kid walking into the liquor store and not instantly getting a, what are you doing in here? Out, you know. But in some of the locations where it is in a public-facing area, even though it is in the alcohol section, because every one of them is, yeah, it's just worth getting that on the books, I think. Just to clarify it for people, because I agree, I think there's a lot of confusion on it. I can say, as somebody who works with the TTB, that we have very strict alcohol labeling laws and what we have to have on our cans for ingredients. These products don't. And they get messy really fast because the federal government hasn't weighed in much. And so the labeling requirement gets pushed off FDA, and then it goes to the state level, and then a lot of states haven't done anything. And so they do get sloppy. So I think it is important that we do address it.
City Manager Staker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Councilman Hoyer. Do you know if these products are typically distributed through liquor distributorships or beer distributorships?
So that's tough to say. I mean, things like this, that's not an alcohol distributor. The drinks, yeah, they tend to come through different alcohol-related sources, typically. I don't know if these same companies that do this stuff have access to them as well. The only place I've ever seen them as an option for distributorship comes from our alcohol distributors, so.
I would ask, we can focus just for a second on the penalty, if anyone has any ideas on that. Chief, do you have any?
Yes, your ordinance is tied to the biggest, most restrictive is a Class 2 misdemeanor, which is a $500 fine and 30 days in jail.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a couple things that I would say in addition to Councilman Hoyer's comments. And I don't know how everybody else on the council feels about this, but I would say that while I have concerns about this ordinance as it's written, for some of the same reasons that City Manager Stager mentioned and Mayor Holeen mentioned, but I don't think any of us believe that that it's not legitimate to set a 21-year-old age limit on these products. I think we're in agreement on that. I could be wrong. I haven't talked to everybody. But I think that's, from my perspective, that's a great place to start. I do think what we're trying to do is something that's similar to what we do with alcohol. I think that's a decent place to start with it. Because right now, all of my concerns with the ordinance as it's written don't have anything to do with the advisability or lack thereof of setting a 21-year-old age limit. I believe that's the right thing to do. But my question is, how do we go about doing that? And one of the questions that I had for our presenters was, the ordinance that we have in front of us today, my question is, well, what's the intent of that ordinance? And I think I heard from some people that it is to do an age restriction. If I understood you correctly, that this doesn't do it for you because it doesn't address THCA. And so, you know, as a council, what I don't want to do is write, you know, a half dozen ordinances, one for THCA, one for, you know, and I'm like you, I look at, for example, House Bill 1008 that was signed in 2020 by Governor Noem that aligned us with that 2018 Farm Bill. And 90% of the products that they list, I can't even pronounce and have no idea what they really are. So it is clear that there's a huge amount of confusion about it. And what I don't want to do is try to, you know, bit by bit, isolate single products and say, you know, here's the deal. While I'm sympathetic to what Mr. Danforth said about taking a leadership role on this, I do think that at least simultaneously, we should be agitating with our local legislative representatives to try and do something at the state level. Because, you know, and I'm old enough to remember when, I'll use alcohol as an example, it was legal in one state at a certain age and not in another. And so what we saw was people driving across the border to buy liquor, and then they'd be drinking and driving back, and it caused problems. And I don't think we want to do that around here relative to these products, where, you know, it's legal in Henry and in Clark, but it's not in Watertown, and kids, they find out, you know. So if there was something like that, they might drive there and then try and drive back. And so I think simultaneously to maybe setting an age limit here locally for these products, I think we should agitate with our legislators to maybe try and do it at the state level so that we don't have a patchwork of laws and regulations that make it difficult to enforce. And I don't want to, you know, beat this too much, but the language of the ordinance itself that we have in front of us is very confusing relative to the penalties, for example. So if we, in Part 2A, we very clearly say, well, this is, we're going to restrict these products to people under the age of 21. Okay, can't furnish, buy, et cetera, et cetera. But in 2B, we go beyond that, I think. And what we say is that these products, you know, there's an exception for it if a licensed physician writes a prescription for somebody that's under 21, but at the same time, we say that someone under 21 cannot consume or possess. And I think that's where we start to get into a little bit of muddy water, because if I live in Aberdeen, for example, there's no age limit, it's legal for me to possess this product. And let's say I'm attending Lake Area and I have, you know, I bring some of that product back because I've always had test anxiety, and if I drink one of these seltzer drinks, I can sleep and I don't have test anxiety. So I bring it back to school, I'm partying with my roommates, music is too loud, the police are called, they show up at the door, and we invite them in, we say, we're sorry about the noise, we'll turn it down, and they spot a THC-infused drink on the counter. And they say, well, whose is that? And, well, it's mine. Well, how old are you? Well, I'm 19. Well, in Watertown, it's unlawful for you to possess or consume that product. And so what do the police do? Well, do you arrest them? And what's the penalty? The penalty as it stands in this ordinance is that if that 19-year-old has a permit or a license to sell those products in Watertown, we may revoke that license. Well, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know what that is. That's why I'm with Councilman Hoyer on perhaps modeling this after what we do with liquor, where we could say, no, here's the penalty. If you sell it, and, then we can do those kinds of tests, right? Where we walk into, the vape shop and, we try to buy something and she says, you need to produce a proof that you're 21 and I don't know, they have a fake ID or something, you make a mistake anyway, you sell it to them, then we have something we can charge you with. And I think that's, because we want you to card, we want you to verify the age limit for people before they can purchase these products. So I just think the way it's written right now, we've got some work to do to clean it up, to clarify it. Because I do think, it's the single subject rule that Mayor Holeen was addressing, and I think there are multiple subjects in this particular ordinance. There's age restriction, there's you can't possess or consume, and there are some other potential dilemmas with regard to that. So I'd be in favor personally of saying, let's try and clean up this ordinance. Let's move to restrict it, the purchase of these products by age. I think it's reasonable, and I think we can write a clean ordinance that would accomplish that, that we as a council might support. I worry, though, because it doesn't address THCA, and I'm not sure how we do that. And whether we have to write multiple ordinances or not, I don't know. But I want to say one last thing about vaping, because, it's not just the vaping of THC products. And I know this because I was on the Minnesota Hospital Association board. There's a huge amount of vaping that's going on with people in middle school and other places. And the problem is, some of it's nicotine, some of it's not nicotine, some of it's a bunch of other chemicals. And I know that the hospital leadership at that time in Minnesota had numerous cases where people who had only been vaping for a very short time, like less than a month, had destroyed their lungs. We had one individual that had to be put on a ventilator. That's a shocking amount of damage in a very short time. And that is illegal, I get that. But we have lots of issues associated with this that really don't involve THC drinks necessarily or products, but vaping in general, not a very good idea. And we really don't have any regulation in terms of what people are putting in those either. So we're faced with a lot of challenges. I appreciate Chief Toomey saying that we have a drug problem. I think that's clear, just based on the number of arrests. We have an alcohol problem as well. Just a year ago, you pointed out that we have more drunk driving arrests now than we've ever had before. That's a problem. And I don't think we're being naive as a council in saying that we need to take some proactive steps to address some of those things. So sorry for the really long-winded diatribe there, but that's kind of my first blush at it. I think we've got some work to do on this ordinance, but I think we're fairly united on what we need to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. Before I go to another councilman, I'll say what I believe might happen if Watertown follows through with this leadership position on this issue. Because as former Councilman Danforth was here in the city of Watertown back 15, 16 years ago, I was out in Pierre at the time. And after Watertown banned K2, the following year, I know I was a prime sponsor and I spoke to it in the Senate. The Attorney General's office brought a bill that banned not only K2, but all the derivatives of it. And then the following year, we gave the Attorney General the power to proactively ban substances as they came onto the market without waiting for the legislature to act. I believe that this might act as a kickstart at the state level, but at the very least, even if it doesn't, we can do right by Watertown. So we can still move forward with what we can. Councilman Moorman.
I just want to thank those that testified here today. I want to thank Mrs. Gilbertson for all the hours she put in and for her desire, to make sure these kids are staying healthy and these products aren't getting into their hands, and for all the work from the Human Services. And then I also just want to just say a word of praise for the kids that were here. They've left now. But as any of us in this room know, that often the choices we make and the chances that kids will take in that junior high and high school age frame, it will set the course of the whole rest of their life. And so I just want to really throw a big shout out to these kids that were willing to come here and say that they want the healthy lifestyle and they want to be a positive role model for their peers.
Any further comments? I'm going to ask council and also City Manager Stager, City Attorney Carrico, anybody in the audience, I know Mrs. Gilbertson, you look through the language very closely and you could perhaps help us with the language. But what I would ask is, my belief would be is if we could come forward with a comprehensive ordinance that dealt with this product in all its different forms. You're talking THC, THCA, and defining it as its own product, not as alcohol, not as food, or defining it as alcohol or food. That would be one topic because it's one ordinance all dealing with the same thing.
Yeah,
Would-
oh, sorry.
Would
Yes.
that be,
Yeah, so first, thank you, council, for commenting. It helps us to understand what you guys are thinking and how we can hopefully put that into a workable product for you guys to look at. With regard to the single subject items, it could very well be that I would want council to focus on everything that you want, and we can figure out what to package in, if there needs to be separate ordinances, just so that you're getting everything that you want out of this. With regard to the single subject rule, when it comes to ordinances, because you are a legislative body that has the ability to amend things, it's more that, are they interrelated and are a common scheme for a common purpose? That is different than, which you've all witnessed, is when there is a constitutional amendment, because there isn't this ability to amend as it's, it's being presented in one form and it's take it or leave it. There's a stricter application of that single subject rule. So I'm not saying that everything you've discussed today would appropriately fit all in one ordinance. I would say you tell us everything you want, and we'll start making sure that it does comply with the rule. Whether it be we need two ordinances, or we need something in a different section of our current ordinances and that sort of thing. So I would say focus on what you want, and we'll make sure to package it correctly.
Councilman Jerns?
I'll make it real simple. Under 21, make it that no one can purchase. The products that we've spoke about tonight, or any others, and keep it simple. Otherwise, we're gonna sit here and rehash and hash, and that's okay, but I think we're all in agreement that under 21, we shouldn't be able to get these. Now, I'm also under the impression, unless Ms. Gilbertson has other information, but I agree with Councilman Hoyer. The grocery stores, the liquor stores, the restaurants, the smoke shops are already carding and making sure that they're not 21. It just isn't a law yet? Is that kind of what?
Maybe, I would say
Well, did they card, I'll simplify, did they card the person who went in and bought this?
I don't know, I didn't ask him.
Did they card the person that went in and
The
bought?
same person bought it all, and I didn't ask him if he got carded.
All right.
I just know that there are stores that I hear do not do a good job of carding or caring about the law.
So I think this would help that. So,
Yeah.
So, Councilman Shoddy?
Thank you. And I would add to Councilman Jurgens also as for staff working through this, as we've talked about, it, the category. Do we categorize it as food or as alcohol? Make sure that we've got that in this as well. Personally, I would say it doesn't get categorized, well, I don't believe we can categorize it as alcohol, so, but not, with our restaurant liquor license, so that way it can help guide that to where it's not categorized as food. So anyway, just to make sure that's part of this. And as far as we all, I believe seems like we're in agreement of the 21 age. And as much as there's been some talk that, they're already carding, and they probably are. I'm glad that establishments are doing that to some degree. That doesn't mean they're doing it. We all know on the liquor side of things, we do checks and establishments don't pass those carding. So that just tells me that it's probably not happening in this category, especially if there's no law against it right now. So, we just need to do what we can to make it more teeth to it, to make it so it's more on the top of the mind awareness. It's an old business term back in the day, TOMA, top of mind awareness, to what when they think of this product, that they make sure they're carding it, not just as a suggestion, but more as a directive. So that would be my take on it.
Councilman Allen.
I'm going to push back a little bit on Councilman Schutte, because the notion that how we categorize this product within a full restaurant liquor license, I don't get. What difference does it make? So if we say that it's, that it follows the way the state currently treats THC-infused drinks as a beverage, that's the way they're taxed. How it's categorized doesn't protect people or not protect people, does it? I don't see what difference that would make. But I would say that it would be another restriction on the restaurant liquor license. And maybe restriction is the wrong word, but it would mean that if I have a full restaurant liquor license, I now have to track alcohol, food, and this other amorphous thing that we're saying is neither of those two things, but it's something else. And what difference does it make? I mean, I don't know, I'm maybe missing something, but I really don't get why it makes a difference. Yeah, it would count toward the 60%. Is it a big deal? I really don't know. The fact is, we've never sold one of those licenses yet, and even though we passed that tonight, it will be November 20th, I believe, before anybody could even purchase one. And I don't think we've asked those individuals, do you intend to sell these THC-infused drinks or not? I don't know. I don't even know if they do. We heard very strongly from some other restaurant owners that they don't sell them and they won't sell them. So I think we're going to have a mixed bag, but it really doesn't seem to me to be material to that particular ordinance. I just don't, maybe I'm missing something and somebody else can enlighten me why it's really important that we do that. Thank you.
And Councilman Allen, it's a good point, and I know that was one of the points that Councilman Hoyer was asking, because, if we did go down that line, we would be creating like a separate license or limiting special restrictions. I guess from my perspective, if we classified it as its own product, in this case, it's not alcohol, it's not food. So as it impacts the restaurant liquor license, it would be classified as neither. So it wouldn't count as the 60% toward food nor the 40% towards alcohol. It would be, as silly as this sounds, it would be like you're selling T-shirts or merchandise. But that would be a way of keeping the integrity of what was intended by the restaurant liquor license when it was created in 2009 by the state legislature, and when it was amended by the city council in 2019, and what I think we were hoping to accomplish here, which is to allow for more restaurants. And I think that was the intent all along, is to allow for restaurants and allow them to sell a Manhattan or an Old Fashioned or whatever. But for those people, like the good people who testified tonight, and I will say, for me, I'm not certain, if I knew for absolute certainty that these infused drinks would not be counted as, would be counted as food or soft drinks, if I knew for certain that these infused drinks would be counted as soft drinks as it comes to the 60% food total for these restaurants, I would vote against it. Because that is not the intent. The intent wasn't to allow you to sell intoxicating beverages under food simply because they're not yet regulated by the state. I mean, and I'm just saying, that's my attitude on it. Because I think we can get to the intent of the legislation, which is we want restaurants and we want them to be able to sell alcohol without, and I think we could do that without completely muddying the waters with taking on these THC products, because it is very complicated and it would take a long time to fully grasp it all. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, but with that said, I am also going to advocate tonight for, I think we can get a win right now if we can, as a council, agree to move forward with a ban on allowing any of these substances, THC, THCA, to anyone under 21 with the same penalties as alcohol. I think that is a win that we can get to tonight. And then we can take on is it a separate product, is it not? How does it apply to the restaurant liquor license? We can deal with that next. And we can have a vote, and if it succeeds, great. If it doesn't succeed, great, we can move on. But I think at the very least, we can move forward with, as the city of Watertown, we can ban the sale of these products to anyone under 21 with the same penalties as if you were to sell alcohol to anyone under 21. Councilman Hoyer?
I would agree that we stay focused on it, and for tonight's sake, I think that is kind of our general goal, is just get the 21 and under resolved. There's going to be more work to it than that. I mean, you have to put things in place for underage consumption, and what does that mean? How does that get classified and resolved? Do you treat that just like alcohol or not? And then we'll have to make a decision at some point. Are we going to do permits on this for people to be able to sell it in the first place? If we do that, is it going to look like alcohol? But even there's already a state license that goes alongside your beer and wine. And so that's going to be some of the challenge we're going to face here, getting out ahead of the state, is that they don't have framework in place, which, too bad. Hopefully we can spur them along to do some of that, because that would help clarify a lot of this. But I think at the very least, what we could focus on is, as Mayor Holeen brought up, just get the 21 and up situated, clarified, go from there. The rest of this stuff is kind of nuance, and we can kind of noodle that out. But as of right now, I think that's probably the most important part and the main concern that everyone had. But that's my opinion.
Councilman Allen?
So just to clarify then, as we write this ordinance, that's what it's going to include. It's not going to include anything about where it gets classified relative to the full liquor license. We're going to deal with the age restriction on the products that we've talked about and not muddy the waters with that particular issue, deal with that indifferent. Thank you.
I would say so. It might cause a little bit of problems later on as we clean it up inside our ordinances as far as where it gets classified, but I don't want to hold up a very good action in order to make perfect legislation. City Manager Stager or City Attorney Carrico, do you have a comment on that? City Manager.
I have a question. I think it's pretty straightforward to draft an ordinance on the prohibition of sales under 21. And I think there are two things we want to prohibit. One is the sale of THCA products. The other one I could use just some alignment on, how do we describe these other things that we've been calling the other things? Do we feel comfortable with hemp-derived THC products? Or what should we call those things?
Ms. Gilbertson, would you come back up to the podium while I call on Councilman Hoyer? Because you actually work in the industry and you know how to get through a loophole in it. But first, Councilman Hoyer. Sorry.
Oh, please, I want to defer to someone who works in the industry and see how you guys currently classify the distinction between CBD and the intoxicating other products.
Well, there isn't. They're all just called industrial hemp products. So what it comes down to is when I was looking at the ordinance as it was initially written and it was trying to call it CBD products, I was like, no, don't do that because there's CBD, there's CBG, there's CBN, there's CBC. There's all kinds of cannabinoids out there. So what I wanted to do is put a distinction between if you have any industrial hemp product with THC or any analog of THC or any isomer of THC, that's one category. And that absolutely is prohibited 21 plus. But then there's the other category. Like I said, you've got your CBD products, your CBG, your CBN. They're considered non-intoxicating cannabinoids. But I also don't believe those should be in the hands of anybody under the age of 18, and there is no law restricting age as far as those sales too.
So how did you phrase that again? Analog or isomer?
Isomers.
Isomers, okay. And and I'm going to ask you because you work in the industry. How does this fit under South Dakota law when it comes to minors who could potentially get with parental approval and a doctor prescribing it, getting such things as cannabidiol, because I know like there are some children who have like seizures and the CBD oil helps them. The parents get it and get it for the children. It would be my understanding that because South Dakota does have medical marijuana, that's covered under that. So we could probably
True.
avoid dealing with that.
Well, but, so my recommendation was under the age restriction is to put the 18-year-old, but restrict it to a parent or guardian. And that goes similar to South Dakota has a codified law with the Delta 8, Delta 10, THCP, blah, blah, blah. You have to have a parent or guardian purchase it. That was kind of the same concept there, just to make sure that the 18 that are truly your youth, not your just became an adult group, don't get their hands on this too.
Why 18, not 21?
I think that there are, so I would be drawing a line between THC cannabinoids and CBD to like cannabinoids.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is 21 plus for anything that's an intoxicating cannabinoid, that's all your THC ones.
Okay.
When you're dealing with anything that starts with a C, so to speak, CBA, CBD, CBN, typically those cannabinoids aren't necessarily intoxicating. Like, yes, if you're going to be foolish and eat the entire can or container of CBD gummies, you're not necessarily going to land in the emergency room, but you're probably going to go night-night for quite some time. You're going to be really tired for a while. So I don't think that those 18, 19, and 21 or 20-year-olds necessarily need to be restricted from those products, but those are also not considered intoxicating cannabinoids.
Okay. Councilman Hoyer?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. Being a former guardsman, when we would get our drug discussion and drug talk every year, I mean, it was always CBD is effective, it's great for joint pain. That's all it does. For the most part, it's just calming and does that. It's not considered like marijuana quite the same. The thing that I'm kind of curious about is with these THCA products, every one of them that we've been shown has the Delta 9 aspect on it. And so I'm just kind of curious to where we go with that, because it does roll up. I mean, I assume then every one of them's trying to say, like, we're good under state law because we're less than 3%.
Well, they're not good under state law.
Okay, they're not at all. Okay.
That's only good under federal law, because
Okay.
when you're dealing with THCA products, South Dakota codified law, its definition of industrial hemp uses total THC.
Right.
Total THC means THCA, that amount times 8.77 plus Delta 9.
Okay.
So any of these THCA products, and that's all of the ones that you guys saw, were all specifically, except the ones I found that weren't, because they were actually chemically modified, but I thought they were THCA. So that's where the difference is there.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay.
So a question would be, so I think we can all agree on the sale to anyone 21 and younger, for the most part. Chief, what would we do with possession for someone who is 21 or 20 and younger?
It's totally up to you. It's a Class 2 misdemeanor, and it's important to note that that's the max penalty is $500, 30 days. So it's up to the judge what the judge would want to do for a fine, but possession should be the same penalty.
I would ask the chief and Kelly, if you want to come back up. If someone is selling this to kids, then by all means, I'd say, go after that misdemeanor. If it is a kid possessing it, do we want to treat them the same as someone selling it to them?
So fortunately for those under the age of 18, if they get a ticket in regards to alcohol, tobacco vape products, things like that, they do have the option, the judge knows, and they have the option of doing diversion programming. So they still have that choice of going through diversion, the process. So then that's when you receive education, screening, assessment, identifying, getting that education piece of it, where then you don't have that ticket arrest component if you complete that diversion programming. Or you can choose that route of paying the fine, and then you have that on your record. So there is that option in regards to those under 18.
Chief?
Class 2 is the most we can charge somebody. If it was up to me, it would be at least a Class 1 for somebody to sell to a minor, but we can't do that for ordinance reasons.
Councilman Hoyer?
I would say it's probably worth our time just to take a look at whatever our alcohol laws do. I think it'd be pretty simple to mirror it. I'm guessing that possession, underage possession, is that within that current law in the
Yeah.
same place?
You got to distinguish between state law and ordinance. Alcohol laws are state laws.
Okay.
But there's still Class 2 misdemeanor for underage possession.
Sure, at max?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Because I think giving them the same option to do diversion go through all the same process that you would with alcohol and everything, I think that's reasonable. I think mirroring the structure of those bills would make sense. I mean, both are intoxicating substances, and so I think that's reasonable to start there. And so maybe that's a good place to start, and then we can go forward from there.
I think we have a good framework if we just mirror our alcohol laws. So, sale, purchase, possession, et cetera. All right. Council, I think we have clear direction for staff on what we can tackle. My final question would be, would this upcoming Monday be the first reading on that? Or tonight could potentially classify?
I would want to do
Okay,
first
you-
reading
you-
next week, yeah.
Okay, so first reading on Monday night for
Correct.
sale, possession, purchase, all of that stuff. So I think we can call that a big win, and then I know that I'll be bringing up the classification and how it impacts the restaurant alcohol license. But anyway, I am more than happy with taking a very good step for Watertown, and I think for the state. So, thank you very much to everyone who testified. Thank you, council, for everything that you have done. I'm excited for Watertown to take the lead on this for the state. So thank you very much. Council, any final comments? Councilman Jurgens? No? All right. I'll get my agenda back here, if I can find it. There we go. Are there any city council member announcements or introduction of topics for future discussion? Councilman Allen.
Just a comment, as we've talked before, I guess, I've spoken to the council a number of times about Third Avenue. The street department, I believe it was the street department, they may have contracted with somebody, I don't know, but they came by a week ago and vastly improved Third Avenue. They did that by removing it wasn't asphalt, but it was like, I forget the name of it. But anyway, they mixed it up with gravel, smoothed it out. We got rid of the ruts. I'm sure that traffic will cause some issues with it, but right now, it's much improved. And I just wanted to thank the street department and whoever they contracted with or whatever for doing that work, because it made a big difference. Thank you.
I would like to say something. I don't know if the city issued a statement, but I forgot to do it at last week's council meeting, and I just wanted to recognize the passing of former Mayor Howard Hopper. And just wanted to say, we respect that service that he put forward for the city and also that of his family, because I think everyone who has ever been an elected official or a public servant knows that it is not just you personally who serves, it is everyone in your family and probably your friends when they want to text you and everything like that. But not to make light of the situation, we just wanted to recognize former Mayor Hopper. Councilman Hoyer?
The only other thing that I wanted to announce, or at least make kind of a public statement on, is just with the government shutdown going on right now, if it doesn't get resolved before November 2nd, we'll be seeing SNAP benefits get halted for November. And so I would just encourage our community to reach out to your local food banks if you can. And if you feel like donating, I think that'd be worthwhile. We've come together multiple times in the past on food scarcity. Oftentimes, this affects our area youth, it affects families. So I would just encourage you, please, take some time, consider donating to them to help folks navigate the coming month and everything that's going to be going with it, especially with the holiday coming up and stuff in November. So, thank you.
Any other announcements? City manager report.
I don't have a report this week.
Thank you. I am not aware of any reason to go into executive session. Therefore, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Jurens, second by Councilman Mormon. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Good night and God bless you, Watertown.